Hey, good evening, guys. Welcome to a webinar which has been broadcasted to you by IMS Pro School. And thank you for sparing your time today. I hope you guys are safe and sound at home. And before we get started for the webinar, I will be a host today. My name is Alan Arvindan, and I'm the product head for IMS Pro School. So before we get started into a detailed discussion of what we do and what data science is all about, I will just take about 2 to 3 minutes just to tell you about the background of IMS and Pro School. So IMS Pro School has been in the training business along with its parent company IMS Learning Resources since 1978, and in these many years we have trained about 8 lakh students across various educational backgrounds and work experience. And also, we are considered as the top 50 most trusted brand in education. This was a study done by Economic Times as well as AC Nielsen. So, why am I telling you all of this? Is just to tell you the fact that we take pride in the fact that we understand the space that you operate into, be it you are in college, be it you have some years of experience, and we've been counseling students and we've been training students for these many years. So IMS as a group has its own test prep business, which is into CAT, GMAT, study abroad businesses, as well as Pro School, which is an arm which is into skill development. IMS as a brand also has a B School, which is known by the Praxis Business School, which is very famous in uh, data science education. And all of our current data science programs are basically in partnership with uh, Praxis as a knowledge partner. So today we talk about data science slash machine learning slash AI slash analytics. A lot of things, which are interchangeably used in this field. And well, data science has never been a new concept. It was first coined up by Peter Noir, which was an alternative name for computer science. And however, that being said, there is so much about data science, and its courses specifically that are overwhelming in the industry. I mean, you go about search data science courses on Google and you will be flooded with different options from courses at 400 rupees to about 10 lakhs. So there is a lot of options available. What is not clear, and where Pro School stands is, or where a student needs to use these counseling sessions, is to judge the value which gets added. So there might be a 400 rupees course. The content might be very good, but you need to understand what works for you and what the institute could add as a value. So to clear all of that, I have with me Aditya. Hi, Aditya. Good evening.
Hi, Alan. Hi, everyone.
So Aditya has been training with us for quite some time now. He's a graduate of Nasi Munji and about 6 years in data science. So before we get started, Aditya, I just thought that probably we could talk about your journey in data science. Till now, what has been your journey? If you could tell us, our audience, your story about how you got into this field and what exactly do you do, so that that will be a good icebreaker for us.
Yeah, so where was I? I did my MBA from Narsi Munji, and that's where I
Okay.
landed my first job into data science, which is at Cognizant's data science practice.
Okay.
First job was mining petabytes and exabytes of data that are generated every day in the world uh, to give the user the best kind of search experience there is. So that was my very first assignment, a very exciting one. That is also where I came in touch with some of the great data science practitioners in the industry. So we had
Okay.
folks from ISRO, DRDO, and all the reputed organizations in the world.
Is
And
it?
yeah, and seeing how these guys operate, continuously learn, keep themselves updated, that was really inspiring. So that is where I really fell in love with this field, and decided, boss, this is going to be what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So
Okay.
so that's where it started.
Okay.
Obviously, the money is good, the jobs are good. We are into making some really cutting edge features for you guys, and yeah, it's exciting.
Okay. So Aditya, I'll just hand over the entire presentation to you from now. So I will come back at the end when we will be interacting with the students for taking up some questions.
Going to start with how the journey of storage of data actually started and how it has evolved over a period of time. Then what field of data science is all about. So there are two parts to the field of data science. Obviously, first part is the data. The second part is the science part of it. So we'll be covering the evolution of how the data storage has improved. That will cover the data part of it. Then I have some very basic examples on what kind of science do we apply on the data. I will also be touching upon some of the concepts that you
Aditya
keep
sir,
hearing in the yeah. Yes, Arnav.
sir, just press F5 of your presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll also be touching upon whatever buzzwords you are hearing in the popular media these days, and what all those words mean. Then we'll touch upon a bit on where the motivation of actual artificial intelligence comes from. Uh, then we'll move on to some of the common terms, some of the job descriptions that are being floated in the market currently, and lastly we'll be touching upon how you enter into this field, and thereafter any doubts, if any. So let me start by introducing you to the journey of data. So this is basically how the journey of data has changed over the years. So data has been in existence since humans have been in existence. So whatever uh, we do when we are speaking to each other, it is a form of data transfer. When we write something, when we draw something, all those things constitute what we call as data. So before the formal advent of any means of storing data, we had only written and oral accounts of people. So if you look at prehistoric times, knowledge used to be passed from teachers to their students in form of oral communication. Uh, Sometime down the line, this knowledge became so vast that it was unable to fit into one person's memory, or people were finding difficulty in memorizing this. So the formal way of storing data came into existence, which is files. So you can imagine 50 years back, if you walk into any government office, you would see those big stacks of files there. So all the information that you needed was stored in those files. But the problem was when you needed to retrieve some information. So you would often hear things like, "Sir, आपकी file खो गई है, आपकी file मिल नहीं रही है, there are some papers missing," and all that. So there were certain problems with the retrieval of data, and that is where computers arrived and they completely revolutionized the retrieval of the data. Now the data you could store on floppy disks, CDs, and everything, and the retrieval of data was very, very fast. So with just a click of a button, you can scan a hard drive of gigabytes of data and you can access the exact information that you need on your computer. So like all of us browse pictures on our laptops, movies on our laptops, we just have to remember where that data is being stored. So computers have completely revolutionized the way we store data, as well as how quickly we can retrieve the data. Now, there was still one more problem of carrying these data everywhere with us. So that is where the hard drives came into picture. Now hard drives were also fitted in our computer, but the portable hard drives made it possible to carry this data around whenever we were moving. And the latest and the biggest development in data storage and retrieval are the data warehouses and the data centers. Now, what these data warehouses and data centers are, they are just a room full of huge hard drives, which contain huge amount of data. So what kind of data do they actually store? So they store every kind of data that you and me are generating today. So if we click pictures, we are generating data. If you upload pictures on Instagram, Facebook, all these pictures are sitting in some data warehouse of Facebook. Whenever you search something on the internet, all those search queries are being stored in some servers of Google. So these are nothing but the data warehouse. So just to give you a glimpse of how the evolution of data has taken place, I have three pictures with you. So these are very interesting. The first two pictures are very, very the first picture is actually about the computer code that was used in the Apollo 11, which is the same spacecraft that sent the man on the moon in 1969. So you can see the amount of code was written on piece of paper. It was transferred into something called as punch cards and was fed into those computers, which actually sent humans to the moon. The second is actually a 5 megabyte drive, which is manufactured and being transported by IBM. Now, when we click a single photograph or a single selfie on our high-end cell phone devices these days, that photograph is worth 5 MB. 50 years back, you needed a big, hefty, clunky hard drive to store just one photograph. And today we are at the third picture. So a 1 terabyte portable hard drive can fit easily on your palm. So that is how the journey of data has been. So we have uh, been able to store huge amounts of data, retrieve huge amounts of data, and the storage has been very, very cheap. If you look at each one of us, we easily generate, 10, 5 to 10 terabytes of data every year. We store it in forms of what you say, images, movies, and so on. And these devices, like the portable hard disk on your screen, helps us move around with this data. Now, with the cloud, uh, technology coming in, this data is now sitting on remote data centers that I showed you in the previous slide. So you are able to access huge amounts of data, you are able to generate huge amounts of data, and you are able to share huge amounts of data. So all these things have led us, some people believe ki, okay, we are generating so much data, how can we use it in a more meaningful way? So that is where data science comes into picture. So the data part of it is sorted, the science part of it is what you see on the screen. So typically businesses, just like I mentioned, you upload millions of pictures on Facebook, Instagram every day. Now Facebook does some kind of data science on it to, enhance your user experience, give you a better experience, give you more fun while browsing their platforms and everything. So this is where businesses started thinking, hey, if I'm generating so much amount of data, can I use the same data and give my user a better experience? And that is where the business understanding part comes into picture. So it always starts with the business application. The first step of any data science problem is what do I want to do and what experience do I want to give my customer or a user. The second step is where my data is stored. I need to be able to retrieve that data with a click of a button or whenever the user sends a request, and I should be able to serve that data to my user. The third part of it is feature engineering. Now, all this data is sitting in big clunky servers somewhere. The algorithms that work in data science are not readily capable of consuming this data. Think of it as your dal chawal. If I give you just dal and some raw rice, you will not be able to eat that rice, correct? You will have to first cook it and then serve it in some katori, chammach, and plate, and only then you will be able to consume that dal chawal. So in the similar way, your machine learning algorithms are expecting the data in a certain format so they can process it. So that is the part of feature engineering. The next thing is predictive modeling. So based on the process data, the feature engineered data, we build some models. So basically a model is which tells you, which remembers the previous data and tries to predict if the same occurrence is going to happen in the future. When will it happen? What is the probability of it happening? And it can answer a bunch of other questions. The fifth and the most important part of data science is also the data visualization. So like I said, raw data is good to have, but a visualization makes it ripe for consumption. Your business users do not understand the technical aspects behind the data. They don't know where the data warehouse is. They don't care about anything. All they want to know is what is the crux of my data? How can I make business decisions out of that data? That is where your data visualization comes into picture. And then this cycle keeps on going. So whenever there are some interesting insights that come out of data visualization, there is a new business problem that comes, and then the cycle goes on. So just like I was saying, the amount of data that we are generating as humans is huge. So just to give you a snapshot, these are some common platforms that all of us are familiar with. And all these numbers are the number of hits on these websites every 1 minute. So if you look at this picture, there are 3.7 million searches on Google every minute. That is a huge number of searches. Almost 1 million logins on Facebook. 18 million text messages being sent over mobile networks. 4.3 million videos are being viewed on YouTube. So all these data is sitting somewhere and is being served to these many users just at a click of a button. And with the kind of internet speeds that we experience these days, um, these experiences are simply flawless. So when you search something on Google, it also gives you the amount of seconds it took, and it's hardly a few milliseconds that it has taken to search whatever query you have fired on Google and give you the results. So that is the power of big data, that is enhancing the kind of experience, the kind of products that are being floated in the market. And in a way, if you think our lives are becoming faster, better, uh, right now, if you imagine this situation that we are in, without all these platforms, our lives would have been miserable. But with these platforms, we are able to flawlessly mine information out of the internet and consume it with a click of a button. So that being said, this is just a graph of the kind of data that is being generated. So like I said in the very first slide, generation of data means whenever we click a selfie, we are generating an image. Image is nothing but a data. Whenever you write something on a Facebook, you wish someone happy birthday on Facebook, that text is stored in Facebook as data. Whenever you are listening to any music, a new album is being recorded, that album is nothing but data. So all these data is being generated at a very fast pace. And if you see the graph, the compounded annual growth rate, which we call the CAGR, is more than 35%. So the amount of data being generated is huge. The amount of data which is unstructured. So the kind of data that we as humans generate is nothing but natural language. So this data is what we call as unstructured data. Photographs, videos are semi-structured database. So all these data is going to be growing exponentially in the coming years. So why am I showing you this slide? The rise in unstructured data is going to be the very reason there are going to be jobs in the market. We are going to need people to consume this data, to make business insights out of this data, to make predictive models out of this data, and all the data related jobs in the next decade or two are going to be related to this humongous amount of data that is being generated. So these are the broad skills that you are going to be requiring in order to do whatever I just mentioned. Big data to manage that data, AI to process that data and build predictive models out of it, BI and machine learning to help businesses make correct business decisions based on the data, and so on. And that is the exact same reason why this field of data science is booming right now. So do you know what is the motivation behind artificial intelligence? Just like most of our discoveries, then the motivation actually comes from nature. So if you can see the two GIFs right now, this is just a on the top there are a bunch of baby ducks that are swimming. If you see on the surface, these ducks appear very calm, but if you go below the water, this is where all the hard work is happening, that they are continuously paddling to stay afloat and to navigate through the water. Now, as humans, we took motivation from nature and designed a propeller. So our boats on the surface, they look very steady, very stable, but the propellers are continuously working below the water. And as far as applications are concerned, haven't we done better than the nature itself? Like ducks can swim at, I don't know, 5 kilometers an hour, but our boats can uh, travel much faster than that. Similarly, with aeroplanes, uh, a bird flies by flapping its wings and generating an air cushion below its body. Now, aeroplanes that we have built do not actually flap their wings. They create the air cushion using propellers. They do have wings with them, but they are not flapping. So what artificial intelligence humans actually do is they take motivation from nature, but we do not copy nature as it is. We modify it, tweak it to our what you say requirements, and then make better out of it. So similarly, whatever speeds the birds can fly at, aeroplanes can almost fly at 10 times the same speed. We have even flown at twice the speed of sound and so on. So we have always taken some or the other motivation from nature while building our products. So one interesting application in AI is the neural networks. So you will keep hearing this term, what are neural networks? So if you see this GIF on your screen, these are these are neuron cells, the cells of your brain and the central nervous system observed under a microscope. The reason why some of them are glowing is that they are communicating with each other using electrical pulses. Now these are called activations. So all the neurons connect or communicate with each other using these signals. Now the same motivation that we saw in the earlier applications is also a motivation for neural networks. So we took the structure of human brain, we kind of modified it our own way, and we came up with something called as neural network. Now if you see the GIF on the right, it is a very simple neural network that is identifying what digit is present on the square box. So if as a human, it is very simple for us to identify that the digit is 2. But how do you tell the machine to, identify this digit as 2? So it borrows the architecture from the human brain. The individual circles that you see on the black GIF are the neurons or the neural cells in the human brain. The lines that you see are flashing are nothing but the electrical impulses. Now, if you observe closely, all the neurons are not connected to each other. There are only specific circuits being fired. And this is exactly what we do in neural networks. That is, we find patterns in the data using the patterns in the connections. So this is just a very high level view of how we have been uh, taking, motivation from nature and building our own applications, tweaking that nature structure or nature's way of doing things, and applying it to our what you say applications, and in fact doing better on some of the cases. Now these are some common terms that you will hear while talking about this field. So I'll go through them one by one, and try to explain what these fields are actually, what these terms actually mean. Big data is actually defined by four V's. The four V's of big data are volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. Volume, no brainer. It is the amount of data that is being generated. Uh, Velocity is the speed at which it is generating. So the volume and velocity part is what we saw in the earlier slides. Those 1 million Facebook logins every minute is both volume and velocity. The variety of data is, like I mentioned, images is one form of data, video is another form of data, text is another form of data, sound is a form of data, and so on. So the data is present in multiple formats. And the last one is veracity. Veracity means the trustworthiness of data. Now, when you are dealing with such a huge volume of data and such a high speed of data, you have to ensure that the correct data is being served. Now, if you look at Facebook, let's say you have uploaded a picture and your friends have liked that picture. Now you have counted, okay, there are 300 likes on your profile picture. Okay, fine. Now, after some days, if no one else has liked that picture, the Facebook UI will still show you the same 300 likes on your picture. This is what we call veracity. And no matter how many times you click on the profile picture, it will show you correct data. Similarly, banking transactions. Imagine the confusion if you logged into your account and you saw a different balance every time. So not only do you have to control the volume and the velocity of the data, but you also have to ensure that your data is correct every time. The second term is machine learning. Machine learning basically refers to uh, we teach the machine how to learn basic patterns using the data. Now, these basic patterns are identified using statistics and maths. There are some very, very simple mathematical algorithms which humanity has known since 100 odd years, and we use these algorithms to predict and study basic patterns in the data. So this is what we call as machine learning. Now, there are some limitations of these statistical methods or mathematical methods. That is why the field of deep learning came into picture, which is our third term. That the deep learning field actually uses neural networks, which we saw in the previous slide, to study patterns in the data. Now, these networks are capable of understanding very, very complex patterns in the data, which machine learning algorithms do not are not capable of. So deep learning is the logical next step of machine learning. So where there are some certain limitations of machine learning, to overcome these limitations, we go into the field of deep learning. Now, neural networks form the basic structure on which deep learning is found. So deep learning uses neural networks. Artificial intelligence is again teaching the machines to learn more complex patterns, but just like you would teach a kid about the good things and the bad things by rewarding them. So if you look at a mother teaching her kid, if he does something good, she will offer him a sweet. If he does something bad, then she will scold him. Similarly, we use neural networks or machine learning algorithms to teach machine to identify some complex pattern. If it does a good job, we reward them. Reward is in the form of just a point, and the machine is programmed in such a way that it has to maximize the reward. So the machine will go on uh, maximizing the reward once it is taking the right steps. So artificial intelligence is currently the applications that you see of AI are self-driving cars, robots, and all such advanced applications that are out there. The next thing is natural language processing. Natural language processing refers to the finding the patterns in the written language. Now, natural language processing is a field related to language only. It can use machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence algorithms at its backend to learn the patterns in the data. So when the machine learning, deep learning, or AI algorithms are applied to language, we enter the field of natural language processing. Data mining is nothing but retrieving large amounts of data from data warehouses. Just like I showed you in the very first slide, data warehouses are large storage rooms full of hard drives where all your data is sitting. Now you need to mine that data, or you need to retrieve only the relevant kind of data from the data warehouse. That is where data mining comes into picture. The next thing is Internet of Things. So just like your smartphones, imagine all the devices in your house can be connected to the internet and can communicate with each other. Right now, we have only our smartphones, which can be connected to the internet. Some of the cars these days are offering this. I think Tesla and MG Hector do have this functionality. So imagine all devices in your house, like your TV, fridge, washing machine, everything that can be connected to internet, and they can be operated from anywhere and they can talk to each other. Now, this basically is not data science at all. It is just generating the amount of data. Now, what kind of data is it generating? Devices like your TV will generate what kind of channels you are watching, what kind of movies do you like, what kind of songs do you like. Your fridge can generate data like what kind of food is inside your fridge, what is the temperature of that food, is the food getting spoiled, how many days has the food been inside the fridge, and so on. Similarly, your car can generate things like what is the engine temperature, what is the tire pressure, is the clutch plate up for renewal, and so on. So all the devices can also generate their own data. Now this data they can send out every second, every minute, depends on what kind of programming is there. And these will generate large amounts of data, and then the cycle of big data will start. So we will, from Internet of Things, we can generate big data, and in order to make correct business assumptions, to learn patterns out of that data, we can apply machine learning, deep learning, AI, and so on. And the last and the most hyped up term is the blockchain or the cryptocurrency. Now, this is just a data structure which is used to store a sequence of transactions. It has almost nothing to do with data science or AI in its true form. AI or data science can be used on top of blockchains to for a variety of applications, but we are still far away from this. The blockchain and the cryptocurrency that we are currently seeing is in very nascent stage. So I hope you have got a decent idea of what these terms are, and I'll be happy to address any questions related to this at the end of the webinar. Now, what is the data science industry all about, and what are the top skills that are required for you as a student to enter into this field and make big in this field? So the first and foremost skill is what you see as Python. Python is a programming language which is very popular among data science professionals because of ease of use, because it is open source and free, and the community support is very good for Python. Now, having said that, Python is not data science and data science is not Python. Python is just a tool which will help you implement the data science algorithms and help you talk to the computer, and computer will implement those algorithms for you. So data science is not Python and Python is not data science, but Python is a very essential tool which you will need if you are a data science practitioner. Second logo that you see is of Tableau. Now Tableau is a dashboarding tool which will help you make graphs, charts, and presentations. This is particularly popular among the corporate community. This is the part of data science which we refer to as data visualization. So it will help you visualize your data, that is, make charts, graphs out of your data, and tell a story about the data. If you need to work in a purely statistical environment, uh, whether you are working in some research or you're working on small amounts of data, R is a statistical package which helps you implement the very basic algorithms. Now with time, there has been kind of a competition between R and Python. So all the algorithms that you could implement with Python can also be now implemented in R as well. And the last and a very important skill is SQL. So SQL has been around for quite some time, but now with advent of big data, even SQL has undergone some transformation. So actually, SQL is the very first step a data scientist actually does in his office. So first step is retrieval of data. For retrieving his data, he will need SQL. There is no other efficient way of retrieving structured data other than SQL. Now there are ways of retrieving unstructured data as well, but that's a topic of discussion for some other time. So what you see on your screen are the four basic tools and technologies that are required for a data science practitioner. Now, what are the different roles in the data science practice? So just like any other department in an IT company, data science is also a department in a company. So there are certain kind of people or job roles that are hello, Arnav, can you hear me?
You can continue, sir.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah. So these are the different kind of people that are present in the data science divisions of different companies. So we'll start from the bottom right, which is the big data engineer. So a big data engineer is basically someone who has a knowledge of SQL and a bit of programming background. So they are mainly concerned with data mining part of it. So they will retrieve the data that the team needs from huge data warehouses in a very efficient and quick way, cost effective way. A machine learning engineer is actually the one who implements the machine learning models. So once a model is ready and up for production, a machine learning engineer will ensure that it is scaling up in the production environment. So let's say Facebook has a feature of automatically tagging your photos. So if you have recently uploaded a photo on Facebook, it will give you a suggestion who is the person in that photo. So it is a facial recognition algorithm which has some data science algorithms running in the backend. So machine learning engineer actually ensures that the same feature is running simultaneously for millions of people around the world. So everybody of you, if you upload a photo right now, that feature will work flawless for all of you. A machine learning engineer actually ensures that. Uh, then the next kind of a job role is a BI analyst, a business intelligent analyst. So BI analyst will typically work with small amount of data and some visualization part of it, and he will try to mine some meaningful insights out of that data. A data analyst will uh, work strictly in the data side of things. He will not try to marry the business and the visualization part of the data. And a data scientist is the most exhaustive skill set out of all these. So a data scientist will have a little bit of all of these skills plus a very high level vision of how the different algorithms can work for a company. So we'll see these job roles in a bit detail on the screen. So first is a big data engineer. So like I said, the essential skills that are required are some programming language, some platform, and SQL. So Hive is actually a modified SQL in the Hadoop ecosystem. It uses a SQL-like syntax plus some Java user-defined functions for mining data. If you look at the experience level required for a big data engineer is what we call as the early entry level, or not entry level, slightly experience level, which is of 2 to 3 years. Whereas a machine learning engineer will look at the algorithms and the algorithms capability of scaling in the actual production environment. Now, machine learning engineers also require programming skills, uh, some package frameworks. The logo in orange is of TensorFlow, which is a package, and some visualization skills. Now, typically, machine learning engineers are recruited right out of college. They should have studied some statistics, maths, or data science related courses in their curriculum. Uh, the next role is of a BI analyst or a business intelligence analyst. Again, this is an entry level job. The skills required are typically some programming language, visualization tools, and SQL. So BI analyst will also work with certain amount of data, and to process that data, he will need the SQL part of it. A data analyst will actually work with some programming, what you say, knowledge, Excel, and again the SQL part of the Hadoop ecosystem. Again, this is a what you say, a entry level job with an experience required of 0 to 2 years. Now, the data scientist is the most sought after profile in all of these, but it also requires a certain level of experience. So we typically hire data scientists above 5 years or 7 years who have also worked in all the previous profiles. So this is he's sort of the senior most person in the team, and he has overall idea of whatever is going on as the practice as a whole. So if you see, look at the skills required for data scientists, that is a combination of almost all the job profiles that you've seen so far. So he needs to be uh, conversant with all the technologies that we have seen so far. So just to reiterate, the first logo is of Azure Machine Learning Studio, which is a platform for machine learning. Second one is Excel. Here we have TensorFlow, SQL, Hive, R, Tableau, and Python. So a data scientist is actually the desired profile that most people are after. But there are actually almost no firms which will recruit a data scientist right out of their college or with 0 years of experience. They would typically recruit someone who has worked in all the previous profiles that we have seen so far. Now, these are some job descriptions that we have pulled from popular job sites such as LinkedIn and Naukri.com. You will find whatever skills we have discussed so far are almost present in all these job descriptions. You know, familiarity with Python, SQL, neural networks, Azure ML, visualization, and so on. Also, there are some the concerned remuneration offered with these profiles. So these are real jobs, job descriptions pulled out of the internet by our team. So you can browse through this, or maybe browse through when we share the presentation with you. Now, entering into this data science, how would you enter into this field of data science? So like I said, some of the job descriptions or the roles in the industry do hire people coming out of colleges and with 0 to 2 years or 2 to 3 years of experience. Now you will need industry relevant curriculum, which is provided by the Praxis B School, which is an arm of the IMS Pro School, as Alan sir mentioned. Plus, you will need some kind of knowledge on the data science algorithms that are being done in the industry. Now, this is a chicken and egg problem. Okay, how do I get an experience without a job, and how do I get a job without an experience? So for that reason, IMS Pro School will provide you some kind of live projects, live case studies that are there. These are very, very popular case studies that are used in academia throughout the top institutions in the world. They will also assist you in uh, getting some exposure through internships, and that is what this postgraduate diploma in data science as a course is all about. So continuing continuing the PG diploma in data science, you will get the best curriculum that is out there. It is curated by some of the faculty which are from the industry, so I am a part of that as well. Uh, there are others who work in different kind of industries. We are kind of following the latest developments and technologies, and we try to bring that to our students to this curriculum. There will also be some kind of placement assistance, 100% placement assistance for you guys. And in the end, if you complete everything with all the course deliverables, all the lectures and everything, you get a certification by the NSDC, which is the National Skills Development Corporation, and IMS Pro School. Now, the way this curriculum is structured is what you see on the screen. So we have divided this curriculum into 3 terms. The first term is very basic statistics, exploratory data analysis, some kind of programming, and very basic machine learning algorithm. So the business analytics course, or the term 1 that you see, will build kind of a foundation for your entry into this world of data science. Now, with business analytics course, you are almost ready to enter into the field of data science as an entry level practitioner, as a BI analyst or a data analyst. The second term, however, goes a level deeper. You have some advanced algorithms. Apart from that, text mining, deep learning, and recommendation system, which is the second level of depth that you will require when you enter the job market. And the third term focuses exclusively on big data, Azure Machine Learning Studio, which is a platform. So these data science algorithms require something called as platform to go live or go into production or be user facing. So Microsoft Azure ML Studio is one such platform. Then you will do something called as the Advanced Tableau project, which is again a visualization project, what the business intelligence analysts do uh, in the actual industry scenario. At the very end of the term, you will also do a end-to-end project using all the skills of machine learning, data mining, data visualization, everything that you have studied so far. And that is how this course of PG Diploma in Data Science is structured. So as I mentioned in the earlier slide, this certification is under the National Skills Development Corporation of India, under the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Now, these are some of the testimonials from the previous students. I will leave you to read them. And I think that is where we come to the end of our presentation. So if there are any questions, now would be a good time.
All right, guys. So thank you, Aditya. So we'll move into the question segment. If anybody has any questions, please post it on the group so that yeah. So some questions have definitely come. So I'll try to summarize and ask you, Aditya.
Yeah.
One simple question is, I mean, there is a guy. For example, if I'm a chartered accountant, how many of these core finance people do you actually see working in data science nowadays?
Okay.
I mean,
So
for example, I might be an MBA finance guy, I might be a CFA, I might be a chartered accountant. How many of these people do you actually see working in a data science team? Do they qualify to become, hardcore machine learning engineer, data scientists, or is it, very, very, niche in that way? I mean, you don't see much people doing that.
Okay, good question. So typically, CA or CFA itself is a very, very niche skill. And if you are moving from this skill into data science, you are moving from one niche to another niche. So if you have that stamina, if you have that capability, well and good, but it will automatically result in what we call the change of career path. So typically, most people do not opt for it. However, that being said, we do see a lot of CA or CFA qualified people working closely with data science people in the banking financial industry. So, like I mentioned, a data scientist also needs to know the direction of the business while formulating his solutions or while finding some patterns in the data. That is where these people kind of help us understand what the field is about and work closely with us. But like I said, if you transition from being a CFA certified person into a data scientist, that would mean a shift of career.
Okay, so you mean to say that it is possible to become a data
Absolutely,
scientist, even if I have a previous background in finance?
absolutely, absolutely. It
That
is.
is a
It is
possibility.
possible. Yes.
Okay, okay. Because I feel that, for example, we're just looking at the implementation of data science across industries, and finance is one of those places where it has seen a lot of high implementation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
of course, if somebody has to work in the finance field, I think domain would really help. So if you have a
Right.
domain of understanding accounts and finance, so I think it
Mm-hmm.
does help in getting into data science. So to answer that question, I think that was Vijay, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that this does help, and you can enter into data science. Second question, which I would like to take, is you know how much of coding is actually required to become a data scientist? I think this is a frequent query, which and I think a lot of commerce students are very apprehensive of data scientists, because as soon as they hear data science, they feel that okay, it's gonna require a lot of coding. But
Yes.
as I mean, we've been launching. I mean, we've been managing data science courses since 2013. I mean, we've been giving out courses since 2013, and I've come to realize that it's not as bad as people think. I mean,
Absolutely.
coding, even the commerce student can pick up if he wants to. So, how
Yes.
much of that coding
So,
is really required?
okay. So, I also get this question a lot. So typically I give this example. So let's say you have a domestic help, right? You have your Kamwali
Yeah.
Maushi who does all the household chores for you. Now, in order to get your work done from that person, you need to speak their language. So similarly,
Hmm.
treat the computer as your helper. In order to speak to the computer, you need a programming language. So Python is the choice, is the programming language of choice for this very reason, that it is very easy to understand. It is very easy to code. It is almost English-like. So it is very easy to pick up for even non technical people, and it is just, think of it as a medium of communicating with the computer. The computer is going to do all the hard work for you. It is going to run all those algorithms, all that. You just need to write one line or few lines of code and tell the computer what you want to do, and it will do it for you. So the amount of coding required is not something that you would expect from a software developer or all those other roles that are there in digest. You should be able to tell the
Correct.
computer, boss, I want to learn this algorithm, I want to apply this algorithm, you do it for me. And that is the amount of coding which is required. And I can assure you, a lot
Correct.
of people
And
from
I think
non-technical background.
just to interrupt, learning, I mean, coding has been obviously been taken, as something that probably only an engineering background guy can do. But I feel, whether or not a person wants to get in data science or not today, but more and more as technology, we get into the use of technology in almost every industry, right? I think probably learning coding would be the necessary thing now for all, because I
Yes,
mean, more and more use of systems, so you have to learn the language of, as you rightly said, how to communicate with a system is going to be more and more important. So, and learning any language is difficult. I mean, not just coding, but if you have to learn any new language also, it takes some time. But once you get used to it, I think uh, it's a breeze, I guess.
yep.
Okay, so I have one question. I mean, this is something for commerce, which I spoke about. Uh, so the only thing which, you know, if a student of commerce background is thinking that he cannot get into data science, I think it's absolutely false. Anybody can get into data science provided he has interest in getting into data science. Uh, there is another, I mean, what do you see happening in this? I mean, Aditya, you might be aware that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people in IT industry into development,
Mm-hmm.
somebody might be working as a developer, somebody might be working as a tester. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
is it okay for him to switch into data science? I mean, and in which roles does he generally get into?
Okay. So, if you are already working in the IT industry, you have a certain edge that you do not need to learn additional coding. You're already conversant with the coding part of it. So that
Mhm.
definitely helps. Plus, uh, the only skills that you need to acquire is of the statistics and the maths behind those machine learning algorithms. So, uh,
Okay.
it's kind of a smooth transition. Most of the people who work in this field can very smoothly transition into data science teams. But having said that, uh, it does not mean that non-IT students cannot compete with these guys. It is a completely false notion, just like engineers को maths आता है. I have known engineers who are horrible at maths. Similarly, if you are not very thorough with your coding, I suggest you will have to start with scratch for coding into the data science field. But if you already know your coding decently, then it should be a very easy transition. And the logical jump actually for software testers and developers into the data science field is mostly because of the compensation part of it. So data science
Okay.
does offer you very, very attractive salary packages. So if you ask any IT guy out there, they would want to get into data science, and compensation is a one big motivation factor there.
And I think people coming from especially the testing and developing part can also get into data science as an overall team. You have a lot of opportunities becoming a data engineer also. I mean, to the data storage side of it, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, like I
right?
said, they
Because
are already conversant with the basic skills that are required to enter
correct,
this field. So the learning curve
correct,
is slightly smaller for those guys.
correct, correct. Okay, there is one question which okay, this is a very I think this question is pretty straightforward. A person who has done mechanical engineering
Uh-huh,
and working in an MNC. I
uh-huh,
don't know what that MNC means, but I mean, which company you mean, what background you have. So he would like to know, if he should do data science. I mean, I think, this question, it's up to you. I mean, if you have done mechanical engineering and either if you're working in a core sector and if data interests you, then of course, I mean, there's nothing which is stopping you. If a commerce guy can join, then I believe you can also join. And just to add on the previous question, which we were talking about the coding part, we also I think cover Python from the basics, right? So for any person who is coming from a commerce background is also able to pick up. So I mean, Aditya, have you ever come across such students in your class
uh-huh,
who actually didn't
uh-huh.
have any coding background and were able to actually perform better?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I recall there was a girl, if I'm not mistaken, her name was Shweta. She was MSc in botany. So
Okay.
she had never even seen a what you say a coding interface in her life. So we
Okay.
actually did a foundation course for her, which helped her how the computer works and so on. And she actually ended up picking programming pretty well because, like I said, it's just like learning any other language for communication. Once that
Correct.
approach is fixed in your head, then the learning part becomes easy. With the kind of materials we have and the delivery we have, we are going to give you complete what you say practice about the coding things, and you should be good to go. So I do recall Shweta because she was very outstanding, but I also have a few other students from non-engineering background who did quite well.
Okay, so it just depends. I mean, I think it might be easier for a commerce student because he does not know anything, as
Yeah.
compared to
So
people who know a little bit. Becomes difficult to teach them.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because
So
I have
it's
also
kind of
personally,
unlearning and learning again.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Uh, okay, now there is a question. I just missed it. Yeah, no, no. There is one more thing which I always think about is the fact that a lot of these uh, job descriptions that we see, in the data science industry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know, you can
Mm-hmm.
try to bust the myth, but we see that what they want is a Superman. They want the candidate to know everything which is available in data science. As opposed to, can you
Absolutely.
tell us what the reality is? Because more and more the courses I see online, right? It's about
Mm-hmm.
adding more and more content. Whereas, uh, from an interview point of view, what are those important, algorithms? What are those fundamentals that are more important than learning those fancy new, uh, things which probably they will never use when they actually enter the industry? Yeah,
Okay, okay, good question. That is absolutely, I totally agree with you. So we have a saying that when you read a job description for a data scientist, you are not actually reading a job description for a person. You want an entire
uh-huh.
data science practice or team of 10 people. So I agree
Correct,
that the job descriptions that are floating around do seem a lot of overwhelming, partly because data science practice is in a very nascent stage right now. So even the data science practitioners themselves do not know what kind of a business problem will arise tomorrow. So for example, I am working in the video space. So my company is into producing movies just like Netflix. So we have our originals and everything. So to think
correct,
of a job description for my company would be, हाँ इसको computer vision के बारे में पता होना चाहिए. You should know about processing videos, images, and everything, right? So we try
correct,
to put that in the job description. What am I currently doing? I am working on natural language processing because I'm working with
correct,
subtitles of the text. So
correct,
sometimes what happens is you never know what kind of a problem you're going to face in the future, and that is the reason people tend to put all the skills that they know or would be required in the future in the job description. Plus, to top it up, recruiters do also add their own tadka. The HR professionals do their own tadka while beautifying that job descriptions, and that is why you see those really big and overwhelming job descriptions. But the
correct,
reality is, when we typically interview candidates for data science, we do give them a case study. In the case study, we try to see the technical expertise of that person, whether he is able to solve that using the tools which we mentioned, Python, R, Tableau, जो भी है. The
correct,
interview will typically go around the case study part of it only. We will ask you questions like, why did you take this approach? Why did you apply this algorithm? So what if I apply the other algorithm? Will it do better? Will it do worse? And such kind of things. So we are not going to grill
correct,
you on theoretical knowledge. We are going to see your application, because
correct,
frankly I see a lot of people who are theoretically very good, but when you put them up to the task they're not very good. So that is why the
correct,
assignment is the very first step. Your interview will typically revolve around the assignment itself, and that is how we typically hire in data science. So I have also
correct,
been a part of hiring teams for both freshers as well as experienced folks in data science. And I can tell you, please don't be afraid of the job descriptions. They will tend to put every buzzword out there in the job descriptions. Make sure
correct,
you have your fundamentals in place. If you do that, if you are able to apply that, I am sure you will land out very good job.
correct. So moving on, I mean, just trying to relate that question to what ProSchool does in its program. So ProSchool has basically three programs. One is business analytics, uh, uh, one is certificate in data science, and we have the entire long program, which is the postgraduate program in data science. Now,
Mhm.
business analytics is a short-term program, and CDS is a little longer program for people who want to get deeper into data science. What is your assessment, Aditya, of how well do we, how well is our program structured for a person who wants to enter the data science field?
Okay.
I mean, in terms
So,
of cases, I mean, the fundamentals, if you talk about.
right. So I think the curriculum for BA as such is pretty exhaustive. So from a data science perspective, the topics that we expect an entry level or an intermediate level person to possess are machine learning, which is
Correct,
regression, classification, time series, and clustering. These are the four topics that we expect minimally out of an entry level person, in addition
correct,
to some Python, visualization, and what you say, Excel kind of experience. So if you
Correct.
see the BA course, we are pretty much cover all these topics well in depth with, I think, 2 or 4 case studies for each topic. So there is practice also involved in whatever concepts we are teaching in the class. So BA course, if a student were to do this course very thoroughly, understand
Correct.
each and every implication of the case study that we are going to teach them, I am pretty sure they are well equipped to enter into the field as an entry level analytics professional.
Okay. Uh, you know, we have seen data science being implemented across multiple industries. Uh,
Mhm.
Majorly, I mean, now we see in entertainment, we see it in finance, BFSI. How much of data science implementation is actually happening in pharma?
Pharma. Oh,
Yeah,
there is a huge amount of implication. So I
correct,
will relate to the very current scenario that the world is facing, is the
correct,
COVID pandemic that is going around.
correct,
For those people, I don't know how many of you are conversant with the how the viruses are structured and so on. But there is an
correct,
actual open source competition that is being floated around, which has a data set of all the known virus structures to the humankind. There is also a database of proteins, which are like the binding sites for the virus. That is basically how the virus infects a cell. And
correct,
there is also, these are widely publicly available databases out there. So we also have the structure of this coronavirus out in the public domain. And the competition
correct,
is using artificial intelligence. You have to
correct,
find the best protein, the best binding inhibitor site for this virus. In other words, you have
correct,
to find the cure for this virus. So the
correct.
person, so if it has to come from the existing protein database, we can just synthesize those proteins in lab, treat, develop a drug out of it, and beat this virus for good. So that is the,
Wow.
what you say, as real as it gets. So pharma industry
Okay,
is actually working on this. If you guys are interested, I will forward you the database, what you say, the competition link on Kaggle as well. It's a humongous database, but it's very interesting. People are coming up with solutions on how to fight this virus. So this is as real as it gets.
okay. So you're saying that a lot of these, virus modeling that probably would have taken years to do can actually be
Absolutely.
done. The testing can
Very
actually be
quickly.
done using those algorithms.
Yes. So it's not testing, as in there is no, obviously there is no replacement for human and animal trials, but at least you can
Correct,
do those simulations very quickly. And you can do a
correct,
lot more simulations that you could do theoretically maybe 10 years back. With AI, you can do multiple scenarios, millions and billions of permutations and combinations, and you can get the most promising results out, so that your human trials and animal trials are minimized. So
correct.
that's
And no
the.
matter what domain we talk about, uh,
Mhm.
the fact still remains that the person still has to have the fundamentals in place, right? So I might
Absolutely.
come from pharma, I might come from telecommunication, I might come from commerce. I still there's no special courses that I do. I mean, I do a fundamental course first and then try to specialize as I enter the industry. I mean, if I'm
Yes.
putting it right.
Yes, 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 absolutely. So, giving
Okay,
my example, I have worked in BFSI, I have worked in retail, and now I am working in media tech. So, these are
correct.
completely different verticals of the industry. So, the only thing that I was constantly evaluated on was how I apply my skills. So, the business problem
Correct.
was well articulated, it was given to me, and all I had to do was apply my technical knowledge and come out with a solution. Now, while telling the solution or while presenting the solution to the business, you still need a little bit of domain knowledge. So like I just talked about the pharma application, I don't know pharma, I've
Correct.
never even remotely done anything related to pharma, but just because I'm an
Hmm.
AI practitioner, I keep reading up on things. So that is how you get on the job domain expertise. So that is
Yeah,
a question of continuously learning. Once your fundamentals
exactly.
are in place, everything is very interesting actually.
Exactly. Exactly. So, any more questions? If anybody has any doubts, okay, I'll just take up a very straightforward question. I think this, I mean, Series G, I would just directly reply to you. You're currently studying BSc Math Stats. What do I have to do to enter data science? Just do the data science program. That's what I have to do. Uh, you have the absolutely correct background. You have Math Stats. What else do you want? So, I mean, you can
The
just
hard part is already done, Alan, I think.
exactly. So, I mean, we train in Gokhale Institute. I don't know how many of you are aware of Gokhale Institute in Pune. So, we train data science, I mean, the economic students out there for data science also. So, I mean, if you're talking about the background, I think in terms of background, I think you can't have a better background than what you have, especially having maths and science. So, all you got to do is call our council, get it, and start with the data science program. So, I think, Aditya, again, coming back to our course, if you see, I feel that any person who would like to enter data science, for him, the necessary tools we are teaching, right? I mean, we are teaching
Absolutely.
Python. I mean, we are spending a lot of time on Python. We are spending a lot of time on data visualization,
Correct.
which, even if you do not get into data science, but you can get into BI at least,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Okay, when are you starting the batch? Yes, we are starting a batch on 8th of May. You can get in touch with our counselors for more information. Okay, any more questions? Will Indian companies adopt big data techniques? Of course, they have started already. Okay, so I think that's mostly all the questions I've covered. And yes, so please join our Telegram group for further updates for more questions that you would like to answer. We have a lot of specialists in those groups who can answer your questions on a day-to-day basis. And also would like to inform you that any more webinars which we will be conducting will be posted on Telegram also. So don't miss out joining the group. And Aditya, thank you so much for joining us today for this session. It was a fruitful session. It was a very interactive session. A lot of things which probably I also was not aware. I came to know. And yes, so probably we'll see you again in the next webinar. So thank you,
Yes.
Aditya. Good night,
Yeah.
people. Thank you for sparing your time. For any more information, you can get in touch with our counselors. All right. Good night. Thank you so much.
Good
Bye
night.
bye.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.